Hey guys, I'm Eric with Extreme Terrain. Today we're checking out this Barricade HD Rear Bumper in textured black, fitting all 2014 to 2021 Toyota Tundras. Now, you really need to be checking this bumper out if you are looking for more aggressive off-road styling, but you also want a bumper that's going to back up that look with some solid construction as well. Now, as you can see, this bumper definitely does provide a lot more aggressive styling compared to your factory setup. And if you're doing what's really popular out there with a lot of Tundra owners these days, and that is kind of blacking out the look of your truck, eliminating any chrome. If you have a factory chrome bumper, it's really going to be quite a stark difference between that bumper and this bumper right here. And of course, this is also an excellent pair if you're fitting your truck with a Barricade HD front bumper as well, so you have the matching front and rear look to your truck. Now, installing this bumper on our fleet vehicle here, it's a TRD edition, so we have the body colored bumper that comes from the factory. So it's not quite as big a leap going from a chrome bumper to this bumper with our TRD setup, but I still think the blacked out appearance really goes well with our black wheels. So if that's an overall look you're going for, this Barricade bumper is really going to deliver in the styling department. Now, like I mentioned, this bumper doesn't just talk the talk. With its solid steel construction that provides material that's almost twice as thick as the factory bumper material, it also walks the walk, and it's going to provide quite an upgrade in protection to the rear of your truck. Now, on top of that solid construction, you also have some very nice features that come with this bumper. You have these step pads here on the corners that have a textured surface to them, so you're going to have good traction regardless of the weather conditions that you're in, or maybe you're working in some mud and you got some mud splashed up here. Once you put your foot up in here, you're going to have decent traction if you got to step up and get something out of your bed. Now, the other thing that's nice too is you can remove these covers that are in this recessed area right here, and you can install rear-facing fog lights. Now, this Barricade HD bumper does also come equipped, if you buy it as a package, with factory fog lights, or you can come up with your own solution and mount them in there quite easily. Now, you are going to get long life out of this bumper as well, and that's largely due to the two-stage finish that Barricade applies to the bumper from the factory that includes a epoxy pre-coating and a durable texture black powder coat. Now, as far as price goes for this Barricade HD rear bumper, you're looking at right around $800, and that puts it in pretty much the lower end of the rear bumper spectrum there. It's very aggressively priced compared to a lot of other options that are being sold today. Now, as far as the installation goes, I'm giving it a pretty basic 2 out of 3 wrenches on our difficulty meter. There are a few challenging steps, and that largely has to do with the uninstall of the factory setup. The way Toyota engineers it, you don't have a solid one-piece rear bumper from the factory. It's kind of modular in several pieces and a lot of hardware that we're going to have to take apart. And it's kind of challenging there, but this is a solid full-width one-piece bumper mounting on, so the actual installation part of this whole process is a lot easier. Now, that being said, give yourself about 2 hours time to get the job done from start to finish. Nothing exotic that you're going to need as far as tools, so let's take a look at the tools we're going to need and move ahead with the installation. All right guys, tools you're going to see in this install include electric impact wrench, a socket wrench, a pair of 12mm sockets, 18 and 19mm sockets, a swivel socket, a flat blade screwdriver, and an 18mm ratcheting wrench. All right guys, now to get ready for our install, we're going to remove obviously our factory bumper, and there are some things we're going to transfer over, mainly our trailer hitch wiring harness plug. We're going to be popping that out of this bumper and transferring it over, and a couple of other things as well, but we're mainly going to have to start by unplugging all this electrical stuff. This truck is equipped with backup sensors, so we're going to be talking about that in this installation process as well as unplugging our license plate lamps and the trailer hitch wiring harness plug. So let's go ahead and get started. All right guys, first to get our trailer hitch wiring harness plug done, just pinch here up top and pull it out. And then you can pinch these clips here, these metal clips, and push it forward. And it'll pop out just like that. And disconnecting your backup sensors is simply pinching this plug right here and backing it out, and you can do that for all 4 of them. All right guys, now to disconnect the wiring harness for the license plate lamps, it's a little bit tight working up in there, and the little tab that you have to pinch to pull the plug out is very small. What's actually easier to do is you twist that whole wiring harness and pull the bulb out. And this little tab right here, push down on that little pointy tab and the bulb will come off. All right guys, now we're underneath the driver's side here. Underneath the bumper, you've got 2 locking pins here and a couple of bolts, and it's also a mirror image of this over on the passenger side. So go ahead and remove these. The center piece raises up and that unlocks the pin, and you can pull it out like that. Using a 12mm socket, take out these 2. All right guys, after you take your license plate off, there's a little lock pin right here you need to remove as well. And if the center piece comes out like it just did for me, all you gotta do is reinsert it back in, no problem. All right, now we need to pop this plastic center piece off. To do that, just kind of pull up on it a little bit and get a flat blade screwdriver underneath. There's some locking tabs. All right guys, then we're gonna pop this end cap off here as well. Just has these kind of pinch clips here that pop into these holes. That's all it's retaining this down. Once you have that off, we're gonna remove some of these lock clips here. If you don't have backup sensors, you're not gonna have to do this next step, but in order for me to get at this sensor so I can unplug it from the wiring harness, we're gonna have to remove these locking pins and kind of pull this plastic cover piece back so I can get at that. Again, if you don't have the rear backup sensor, don't do what I'm about to show you here. All right guys, there's one more lock pin underneath here that we're gonna take out. And that should allow us to pull this back and expose the wiring harness right there. Again, just pinch the tab and pull it back like that. All right guys, now we're gonna remove these bolts up here. These are also 12mm. Some of these closer to the tailgate here are a little tight. You might want a swivel socket like I have on here. And for these that are awfully close, I'm going to use a smaller hand wrench. And because of the tight clearance right here, guys, another tool you might want to try is if you have a ratcheting wrench, go ahead and use that. All right, guys, now pull your bumper end cap off. Now we're still gonna have some wiring attached here. Now I've flipped this around upside down. We're gonna undo these 2 bolts and this plastic clip. We should be able to get this cap off. There's a wiring harness tucked in here that we're gonna have to unplug so that we can get this piece off of the truck. Again, 12mm socket for these. Now there's a little retaining clip right here, guys. We're just gonna pinch the ends in, pop that out. And pull back the shell. This one's tucked in there pretty good. I'm gonna use some needle nose pliers so I can get a pinch on it. All right guys, so we can continue. I'm just gonna grab up our wiring harnesses here and just kind of tuck them back out of the way for the next steps. And everything we showed you here, go ahead and repeat that on the passenger side. We're also gonna remove these brackets right here. We're not gonna need this for the installation of this HD replacement bumper. Again, using a 12mm socket, we're gonna release these two nuts here, and the bolts are basically attached to this plate. All right guys, now we've pretty much uninstalled the rear bumper from our Tundra here. I wanted to set it up a little bit side-by-side comparison with our new HD replacement rear bumper for the Tundra. And really, it is a huge comparison here. We're talking about kind of pieces, parts that come off the Tundra. You've got these end caps that are made from, solid steel. It's a lot thinner than the material you're gonna be getting with this new HD replacement bumper, and it's also one piece. Really, the only metal parts we have to the bumper itself are the end caps. The center is pretty much plastic, and all you're really getting for rear end protection with the factory setup is the trailer hitch. That's what's gonna provide you rear end protection in the center area of the rear of your truck. Out on the ends here, you have this thinner metal. It's kind of out on the corners, and what's nice about this HD replacement bumper is not only is that going to provide better protection, but you have these footholds here. You can step up if you're retrieving something out of the bed of your pickup truck. And you can also accommodate the backup sensors if your truck has that. If they don't, there are fill-in plugs right here that will kind of dress up the bumper and kind of give it a more finished appearance, which is nice as well. Other than that, we're going to be replacing our wiring harness plug for our trailer hitch. That's going to be a plug-and-play situation there. But the only downside to this HD replacement bumper is that the license plate lamp that is going to come with this kit is basically a bulb with some bare wiring, and you're going to have to figure out a wiring solution as far as tapping into your truck's power supply for that. It does not reuse the factory license plate lamps from your truck, unfortunately. That would make it a little bit easier. That'd be one solution you're going to have to figure out on your own. Other than that, this is going to be pretty simple to bolt up, so let's go ahead and get started with that. All right, for this next step, guys, we're just going to put our floor jack underneath our trailer hitch here, just as a precaution, because we're going to be undoing some bolts. We're going to be undoing some bolts that attach the trailer hitch to the frame rails, so we're just going to support that as a precaution. All right, guys, now we're going to mount the driver's side bracket. You have two of these brackets in the kit, and they're stamped. This one has a letter D for driver's side on it, and it's going to fit on the outside of the frame rail like this. This kind of half-circled notch right here will go right over top of this. So in order to mount this, we're going to use the factory hardware here. We're going to remove these 4 bolts, which is why we had to support our trailer hitch, because these bolts attach the trailer hitch to the frame rails. And we're going to need a 19mm socket to get these out. All right, guys, now this top one up here, I have a swivel socket on here. It's a little bit of an angle here because of this support bracket for the fender. All right, get your bracket on here, kind of line it up. Now you have a little bit of play there because the cutouts in this bracket that we're installing are kind of oval shaped, so you can be tucked in or out, and the difference is about maybe a quarter to half inch difference in and out. So we're going to set it up so that it's pushed out the furthest, just to start off with. And we're going to leave them loose for now so we can adjust it if needed later, so the bumper fits up like we want when we're all done. All right, now we have it kind of adjusted, like I said, out all the way. So go ahead and repeat this on the passenger side. All right guys, now real quick, I just want to talk about fitting up your backup sensors from your factory bumper to this bumper. Now, you can see here, our factory sensor is smaller than the hole provided in the bumper. Now, you could mount this in and screw it down using these small Allen key button head bolts. There's a couple of threaded holes on each side here, and you could kind of screw that in place. Another option I would maybe recommend is the rubber plugs that the kit comes with. These fit in there nice and snug, and I don't know if that will interfere with the signal here with this, so you might want to cut out this little circle and then use this to fit in. And once you do that, that fits in nice and snugly, and that's going to keep your sensor in there secure, and then you can thread these bolts through the holes like that, and that'll keep the plug from backing out so that it won't fall out. This isn't going to be a permanent installation on our truck, so we're not going to remove all of our sensors and install them in this, but I just wanted to point that out. You might need to come up with a little bit of a solution to make this work nice and tight so that the sensors don't come loose and so they work properly. So for this demonstration, you can just put these plugs in like this and fit them all the way down like that to dress up the bumper if you do not have any sensors to switch over. All right guys, now a couple things to set up also is our license plate lamp. Like I said earlier, it's basically just a lamp with a couple of bare wires here. You're going to have to splice these into the pair of wires that go to one of your factory license plate lamps. Not a real difficult thing to do, and it's pretty self-evident. There's only 2 wires on the factory wiring harness. You just need to figure out which one is the power and which one is the negative, and splice those in. Again, this is not a permanent installation on our fleet vehicle, so I'm not going to tamper with our truck's wiring. But otherwise, as far as fitting it in, it's just a series of these clips here that are going to lock it in place. So if you push it in from the front, all you have to do is make sure that the light portion is oriented towards the license plate. And as far as this goes, this is simply pushing it in place, and the factory clips hold it in place just like that. Install your license plate clips. All right guys, now I have a friend here helping me with this. Bumper's not overly heavy, but it is a large item and you're gonna need help lining it up, because unfortunately you can't set the bumper on something and let it just sit there. These 2 holes here are gonna line up with the holes in the brackets, so we're gonna get it lined up and get a bolt started on each side so that it hangs safely. All right, the bumper is kind of resting there a little bit. I'm just holding it up like this so that it doesn't come off. Now I'm kind of lifting it up off of the frame rail there to get this bolt started. So it's a little tricky. All right, make sure you're securing up a bolt on the other side as well. All Right now we're gonna get a top bolt in up here as well. Of course, we're using flat washers and lock washers as well. This bumper should come pre-greased from the manufacturer, so these bolts do go in pretty easy until you start getting it snugged up. It's pretty tight up in here, guys. If you have an extension with your socket, you might be able to get that up here like this. I'm gonna use a 18mm ratcheting wrench to tighten this down. Tighten up the bottom one as well. All right, now we have the bumper set up like we like in terms of alignment with it, and we're gonna tighten these factory bolts up. Now these are 19mm. And we'll go ahead and repeat this and the other bolts tightening up on the other side as well. All right, now that the bumper is mounted on the truck, don't forget to reconnect your trailer wiring harness and any sensors that you have on the rear of your truck if it comes equipped with them. And that pretty much wraps up this review and install of this Barricade HD Rear Bumper in texture black for all 2014 to 2021 Toyota Tundras. And of course, for all things Tundra, keep it right here at extremeterrain.com.